A fragmented memory, sharp as shattered glass. A sterile, white room 5 years ago. Unusual, but not unheard of. A doctor's voice echoed, clinical and detached, over the rhythmic thumping of a fetal heart monitor. A vanishing twin. It seems one sac simply stopped developing. The remaining fetus, your daughter, is perfectly healthy. The medical jargon faded, replaced by a woman's desperate plea slicing through the cold night air outside a monolithic skyscraper. He's your son, Felix. You can't just turn your back on him. Inside, under the cold glare of recessed lighting, Felix Judges stared at the infant bundled in the arms of a woman he didn't recognize. Her face was a tear-streaked mask of desperation, but it wasn't the face. Not the one seared into his memory from that single, reckless night. He felt nothing but a glacial certainty. She's not the one, he said, his voice devoid of warmth. A final judgment delivered to his head of security. He turned away from the pleading woman and the wailing child, the sound dissolving into the hum of the city below. He was searching for a ghost, and this was not her. 5 years later, the sterile quiet of that memory was shattered by the cacophony of Incheon International Airport. Tasha Gould, late for a client meeting she couldn't afford to miss, wove through the throng of travelers, a portfolio case clutched under one arm and a half-eaten sandwich in the other. She dodged a rolling suitcase, pivoted around a family, and ran headlong into a wall of solid navy blue. A man. Her portfolio flew open, sketches and design proofs scattering across the polished floor like fallen leaves. "Oh, God, I'm so sorry," she gasped, dropping to her knees, her cheeks burning with humiliation. "Watch where you're going," a low, clipped voice commanded from above. Tasha glanced up, her apology dying on her lips. The man was impeccably dressed, his jaw set in a line of severe annoyance. He looked at her and her scattered papers as if they were nothing more than debris. It was Felix Judges. He didn't offer to help. He simply adjusted his tie, stepped over a sketch of a children's bookcase, and strode away without a backward glance. Tasha gathered her papers, her frustration simmering. Of all the arrogant, entitled, she shook her head, forcing the encounter from her mind. She had a daughter to feed. She didn't have time for rude men in expensive suits. Days later, that time was stolen from her anyway. In the dizzying weekend chaos of the Starfield Mall, Tasha was searching for a birthday gift for her daughter, Yara. As she passed the towering central fountain, a small boy with wide, dark eyes and a mess of brown hair stepped directly into her path. He couldn't have been more than 5. He looked up at her, his bottom lip trembling, and then his expression cleared into one of pure, unadulterated relief. "Mummy," he whispered, his voice small but certain. He reached out and wrapped his little arms tightly around her legs. "I found you. Let's go home." Tasha froze, her heart lurching with a bizarre mix of shock and inexplicable, gut-deep familiarity. She gently knelt, her hands hovering over his small shoulders. "Hey, sweetie, I think you have the wrong person. I'm not your mummy." But the boy, Ray, just shook his head, burying his face in her coat. The scent of his hair, a mix of sunshine and sweet shampoo, was strangely comforting. "Yes, you are," he insisted, his voice muffled. "Where are your parents?" she asked softly, her own maternal instincts taking over. Something about him tugged at a string deep inside her she didn't know existed. Deciding the customer service desk was their best bet, she offered him her hand. "Come on, let's go find them together." He took her hand without hesitation. They had taken no more than 10 steps, and a thunderous voice ripped through the mall's ambient chatter. "Ray, get away from her." Tasha turned to see the man from the airport, Felix Judges, storming toward them, his face a mask of fury. He didn't stop to ask questions. He snatched the boy's arm, trying to pull him away. "What do you think you're doing with my son?" he snarled, his eyes accusing her of the worst. Ray cried out, clinging to Tasha's leg with surprising strength. No. I want to stay with Mommy. She is not your mother. Felix gritted out, his knuckles white as he tightened his grip. The boy's terrified sobs sent a protective rage through Tasha. Let go of him. You're hurting him, she snapped, shielding Ray with her body. The accusation in Felix's eyes, the assumption that she was a kidnapper. Her predator was galling. He was lost. I was taking him to customer service. Like the story, Felix sneered, the public scene drawing a circle of curious onlookers. That was it. Tasha's patience evaporated. She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. You can explain your parenting methods to them, she said, her voice shaking with indignation as she dialed the emergency number. I'm calling the police. The confrontation ended with security, apologies forced through clenched teeth, and a lingering sense of violation. I followed Tasha all the way home. She walked in to find her mother waiting, arms crossed, her expression sour. I got a call from Mrs. Kim. You missed your appointment, her mother began, her tone sharp with disappointment. Always running around, always in some kind of trouble. That child has made you a troublemaker. Tasha, Yara is my daughter. Mum, not that child. Tasha retorted, exhaustion weighing her down. A daughter you can barely support. Her mother pressed on, relentless. I've arranged something, a blind date. He's a good man. A pharmacist. Stable. A good husband would solve all of this. I'm not looking for a husband. And I'm not for sale. The weight of her mother's disapproval was a familiar, crushing burden. But Yara was her world, the reason for every sacrifice. She would not let anyone, not even her own mother, frame her as a problem to be solved against her better judgment. However, Tasha found herself sitting across from the pharmacist at a trendy Gangnam restaurant 2 nights later. The date was excruciatingly dull, as she politely feigned interest in a lengthy monologue about prescription drug distribution. A commotion erupted near the entrance. A woman with perfectly coiffed hair and a designer dress swept into the room, her eyes scanning the tables before landing on theirs. It was Nina Olsen, a socialite whose face was plastered across celebrity gossip sites, often linked with Felix judges. She marched directly to their table, her expression a practiced mask of wounded grace. So, this is her, Nina said, her voice loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. She ignored the pharmacist completely, her venomous gaze fixed on Tasha. Felix told me he was ending things, but I didn't think he'd move on so publicly. Tasha stared, completely bewildered. I'm sorry. I think you're mistaken. Nina cut her off, playing to her audience. I know his family disapproves of me, that they think I'm not good enough for him. But Felix, he chose me. He chose us. She dabbed at a non-existent tear. He even lets me take care of his precious son, Ray. To use his own child to break up with me, it's just cruel. The implication was clear and poisonous. Tasha was the other woman, a gold digger, the secret lover who was tearing a family apart. Whispers rippled through the restaurant. Tasha felt her face flush, the humiliation from the airport, and the mall crashing back with renewed force. This man, this Felix Judges, was a magnet for chaos, and he kept pulling her into his orbit. I don't know who you think I am, Tasha said, her voice low and firm as she pushed her chair back and stood. But whatever psychodrama you're starring in, I want no part of it. I would never be a mistress. She turned to leave, only to find her path blocked. Felix Judges stood there, his expression a thundercloud of irritation. He had clearly been on his way in, probably to meet Nina. You again, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. First my son, now my dinner. You have a talent for causing trouble. He glanced at the scene Nina had created, then dismissed Tasha with a wave of his hand. Go. Just go. He turned his glare on Nina. You're paying for the meal you ruined. Tasha's jaw tightened. She was a hurricane, a nuisance, an inconvenience to be swatted away. Fine. Let them have their drama. She's all yours. Tasha muttered, gesturing from Nina back to him. Without another word, she pushed past him and fled the restaurant, the stifling weight of their accusations clinging to her as she disappeared into the night, completely unaware that her escape was only temporary. The email had been sterile. Corporate. Judges Group is pleased to announce the appointment of Mr. Felix Judges as our new Chief Executive Officer. Tasha had skimmed it, her mind already debugging a line of code for the company's new logistics platform. The name meant nothing, but the man, standing with his executive entourage by the glass-walled conference rooms, meant everything. A cold dread, sharp as an icicle, pierced through her. It was him, the man from the airport, the chaotic force who seemed magnetically drawn to upending her life. Her new boss. Her first instinct was to hide, to melt into the beige fabric of her cubicle and become just another cog in the machine. But fate, in the form of a crisp summons from the executive floor, had other plans. To walk to his office felt like a mile-long march toward her own execution. Each step echoed with the fear of a single mother about to lose the job that kept a roof over her daughter's head. His office was a minimalist cathedral of steel and glass, overlooking the city sprawl. Felix didn't stand to greet her. He remained seated behind a vast mahogany desk, his posture radiating an unnerving stillness. Miss Gould, he began, his voice a low baritone that filled the cavernous space. You caused me a rather important business dinner. My date believed I was being accosted by a corporate stalker. Tasha's jaw tightened. That was a misunderstanding. Your son. My son is my concern. He cut in smoothly. Yours is your new role. He gestured to a sleek desk tucked into an alcove near his own. Congratulations on your promotion. You are now my personal secretary. The world tilted. What? Mr. Judges, I'm a programmer. In the IT department. I'm aware, he said, a flicker of something unreadable in his dark eyes. But I require a tech-savvy assistant. Someone who understands binary. Not just brunch reservations. Consider it a human-AI collaboration. You're the AI. He named a salary figure that was precisely triple her current one. It was a golden cage, and the lock had just clicked shut. I'm not qualified for administrative work, she protested, her voice strained. My skills are in back-end development, not calendar management. He rose from his chair, his height and presence suddenly overwhelming the room. He moved around the desk, stopping just in front of her. The clean, expensive scent of his cologne filled her senses. Your primary skill, Miss Gould, is an uncanny ability to be exactly where you're not supposed to be. I've decided to harness that chaos for my own benefit. He leaned closer, his gaze intense. And since we keep colliding, it's best I keep you close. It's what happens when two parents are in the same orbit. Before she could process the strange emphasis on the word parents, he stumbled, a deliberate, almost theatrical movement. His hand braced against the wall beside her head, his body trapping hers. For a split second, his lips brushed against hers, a ghost of a touch, electric and shocking. He pulled back instantly, his expression a mask of cool assessment. My apologies. A repeat of our airport collision. Tasha's heart hammered against her ribs. A wild bird trapped in a cage. Heat flooded her cheeks. I've never even dated anyone, she stammered, the words tumbling out in a mortified rush, a desperate attempt to deflect the intimacy of the moment. A slow, knowing smile touched his lips. Naive, he murmured, a word both a judgment and a fascination. We both made a mistake once, Ms. Gould. Now we have the consequences to prove it. His phone buzzed, shattering the tension. He answered, his demeanor shifting instantly from predatory to paternal. What? Where is he? A pause. The company clinic. I'm on my way. He ended the call, his jaw set. My son, Ray, had a dizzy spell at his new school. They've brought him here. He looked at Tasha, his eyes narrowed in command. You're coming with me. An hour later, the crisis had been downgraded to low blood sugar. Felix, preoccupied with a series of urgent calls, had parked Ray in the bustling company cafeteria with a tray of food. But the boy, restless and small, pushed his untouched grilled cheese away. He wandered between the tables until his eyes landed on Tasha, who was quietly eating a salad at a small table in the corner. He approached her cautiously. Are you the lady from the airport? Tasha's heart softened. She gave him a small smile. I am. Are you feeling better? He nodded, his gaze fixed on the bright red strawberries in her salad. I love their fruit, she said, nudging the bowl toward him. The chefs here are the best. Ray took one, then another, his earlier gloom lifting as he chatted about his favorite video games. Tasha listened, a familiar maternal warmth spreading through her. Their peaceful bubble was violently burst. There you are. A sharp, imperious voice sliced through the cafeteria's hum. Nina Olsen, impeccably dressed in a razor-sharp crimson suit, bore down on them. Her perfectly manicured hand gripped Ray's arm. What do you think you're doing? And who is this? Her dismissive glare swept over Tasha's simple work attire. She gave me strawberries, Ray mumbled, trying to pull his arm away, using company perks to lure the CEO's son away. How pathetically transparent, Nina sneered, her voice loud enough for nearby tables to turn and stare. Let me make this clear. I am Nina Olsen, Felix's fiancée, the future Mrs. Judges. You will stay away from my fiancé and you will stay away from his son. Tasha felt 100 pairs of eyes on her, the humiliation hot and suffocating. But before she could speak, Ray wrenched his arm free. She didn't trick me, he shouted, his small voice ringing with indignation. You're the one who's mean. You're bullying her. Nina's face contorted in a mask of fury. You little brat. That's enough. Felix's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. He had appeared silently behind them, his expression glacial. He walked past Nina, knelt beside his son, and placed a protective hand on his shoulder. Ray, go wait for me by the elevators. The both scurried off, casting a worried glance back at Tasha. Felix rose to his full height, his gaze locking onto Nina. You just threatened my son and publicly humiliated my employee. Pack your things. You're fired. Nina stared, aghast. Felix, darling, you can't be serious. We're engaged. I'm the rightful Mrs. Judges. The engagement, Felix said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm, is off. Effective immediately. The silence in the cafeteria was absolute. As Nina stood, frozen in disbelief and rage, Ray's guilty face peeked out from behind a pillar. Tasha's heart went out to him. Stepping forward, she drew the fire onto herself. Mr. Judges, it was my fault. I shouldn't have distracted him. Please, it was just a misunderstanding. Protecting the child was an instinct she couldn't suppress. Later that evening, the chaos had subsided, but the questions remained. Felix sat alone in his darkened office, the city lights twinkling below like a scattered handful of diamonds. His phone rang. It was his private investigator. We found something, Mr. Judges. The man's voice was professional. Clipped. 5 years ago, on the day of your son's birth, we placed Tasha Gould's cell phone signal within 100 yards of St. Ambrose Hospital, specifically near the maternity ward. A pause. The same ward where the surrogate, who registered under the name Wendy, gave birth. The sterile air of the hospital corridor crackled with a tension thicker than grief. "We're out of O negative," the doctor announced, his voice a flat line of professional regret. "Ray's condition is critical. We need a donor. Now." The words struck Tasha like a physical blow. She saw Felix's son, small and pale in the hospital bed, and a primal, inexplicable urge to protect him surged through her. Without a second thought, she stepped forward, her voice clear in the suffocating quiet. "I'm O negative. Take my blood." Nina Olsen, her face a mask of tear-streaked hysteria, whirled around. "You!" she shrieked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Absolutely not. I will not have her filthy, low-born blood pumped into my son." She lunged toward the doctor, manicured nails digging into his sleeve. "She's an opportunist, a stalker. She probably orchestrated this whole thing to get closer to Felix." Just then, Felix strode down the hall, his face a grim sculpture of controlled panic. He stopped dead, taking in the scene. Nina's unhinged accusations, the doctor's helpless frustration, and Tasha standing resolute, her arm already extended, her gaze fixed on the door to Ray's room. He heard Nina's final, venomous words, and something inside him snapped. Enough. The single word, spoken with chilling authority. Silence, everyone. Felix's eyes, cold as chips of granite, bored into Nina. He turned to the doctor. "Use her blood, now, Felix." "No." Nina screamed, her composure shattering completely. She shoved past the doctor and lunged at Tasha, her hands clawing for her face. "You're not saving him. You're trying to clear your name. You conniving." Felix moved with startling speed, catching Nina's wrists in an iron grip. He pulled her back, his voice dropping to a low, furious growl for her ears alone. "You want to talk about blame? Nina, you left my 5-year-old son unattended by the pool to take a call with your party planner. The security footage is quite clear." Nina's face went white, her struggles ceasing instantly. Felix released her with a look of utter contempt and nodded to the nurse. Tasha was quickly ushered away, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. An hour later, as Tasha sat sipping juice, the doctor returned, his brow furrowed with anew professional confusion. "Mr. Judges, there's an anomaly." He held up a chart. During the transfusion, Ray's system registered a minor histocompatibility reaction. It's incredibly rare, harmless in this case, but it's a genetic marker we almost exclusively see between a mother and her biological child. Felix stared at him, the world tilting on its axis. "That's impossible, under normal circumstances." "Yes," the doctor conceded, but given Ms. Gould's insistence on her connection to Ray, and his data, I took the liberty of running a preliminary DNA comparison from the blood samples. He paused, letting the weight of his words fill the room. He looked from Felix to Tasha, who had gone utterly still. "Mr. Judges, the probability of maternity is 99.999%. Tasha Gould is Ray's biological mother." The silence that followed was a living thing, a vortex that swallowed all sound. Nina let out a choked, disbelieving gasp. Her parents, who had arrived to offer support, looked on in open-mouthed horror. Tasha's own heart hammered against her ribs, a wild drumbeat of shock and a terrifying, dawning comprehension. The night 5 years ago, the clinic, the lies, it was all real. Felix's shock calcified into a diamond-hard resolve. He turned to Nina, his expression unreadable but his voice final. "Get out. You and your parents. The engagement is over. We're finished. Felix, you can't believe this fraud." Mr. Olsen blustered, stepping forward. "I believe science." Felix cut back, his gaze never leaving Tasha's pale, stunned face. "Now, Get out of my sight before I security remove you. As the Orson scurried away, a new whirlwind burst into the room. A robust, silver-haired man with a booming voice and Felix's commanding eyes stormed in, flanked by an assistant. Felix, I came as soon as I heard. Where is she? Where is the mother of my great-grandson? Grandpa Jude's eyes scanned the room and landed on Tasha. A wide, triumphant grin split his face. There you are, my dear girl. It's about time. He clasped Tasha's hands, his grip surprisingly warm. We're having a wedding. Immediately. Taboo needs his mother, and my great-grandson will not be born out of wedlock. Raised by an unmarried mother. Grandfather, please, Felix interjected, stepping between them. This is complicated. Tasha didn't even know. We need to understand what happened. What's to understand? Grandpa Judges boomed, jabbing a finger at Felix's chest. You made a baby with this wonderful, life-saving young woman. You will do the honorable thing. Or so help me. I will cut you off from every last penny. You will not shirk your responsibility. 2 days later, the storm had passed. The ground was still shaking. Felix sat in the sterile quiet of his penthouse office, the city a silent panorama below him, replaying the DNA results in his mind. Tasha, Ray's mother. The knowledge was a permanent fixture in his brain, both a shocking revelation and a strangely fitting piece of a puzzle he never knew he was solving. His intercom burst. Sir, there's a small child here to see you. She's very insistent. Before Felix could respond, his office door creaked open. A little girl, no older than 4, with enormous, curious eyes and pigtails, stood on the threshold. She clutched a crumpled page torn from a business magazine, pointing a tiny finger at his photo. Are you Felix Judges? She asked, a voice surprisingly steady. Felix knelt, his corporate armor melting away. I am. And who are you? My name is Yara. She marched forward and presented the clipping like a legal summons. I think you might be my daddy. Felix felt a bizarre jolt, a mix of disbelief and an inexplicable pull of affection. Yara, I think there's been a mistake. I only have one child, a son. Oh, I know you're not my real daddy, she clarified patiently, as if explaining something to a slow adult. My real daddy went to be a star in the sky, but my mummy works so hard, and she's so sad sometimes. She needs a daddy to help her, and you have a kind face. She patted the magazine photo. And you're rich. You can buy her lots of flowers. Felix was utterly disarmed, a smile touching his lips for the first time in days. He listened as Yara painted a picture of a superhero mother, a woman who was beautiful, kind, brave, and made the best pancakes in the world. A woman who deserved a good man to protect her. Can you meet her? Yara asked, her big eyes pleading. I can set it up. It will be a surprise. Something in her earnest plea resonated with the chaos in his own life. An idea, sharp and decisive, formed in his mind. This child was wandering the city alone, setting up blind dates for her mother. Whatever her mother's virtues, this was unacceptable negligence. He nodded slowly. All right, Yara, I'll meet her. After ensuring Yara was safe with his secretary, Felix picked up his phone. He found Tasha Gould's number in the hospital's contact file. He needed to see her anyway, to discuss Ray, to begin unraveling the last 5 years. But now, he had another, more pressing matter. Tasha answered on the second ring, her voice wary. Hello. Felix's tone was cool, all business, masking the 100 other things he wanted to say. Ms. Gould, this is Felix Judges. We need to talk. It's about your daughter, Yara. He paused, letting the implication land. We need to meet immediately to discuss your blatant parental negligence. The grand doors of Judges Manor swung open, revealing a world Tasha had only ever seen in magazines. Gleaming marble floors reflected the light of a colossal crystal chandelier, and the air, thick with the scent of lilac, an expensive perfume, hindered the polite murmur of high society. But the opulence was a blur, a distant noise against the frantic drumbeat in her chest. Yara. Where is Yara? Her daughter's cryptic message about a blind date at this address had been a cruel prank, a childish attempt at matchmaking that had spiraled into a mother's worst nightmare. A small figure detached from a group of children near a mountain of gifts. Tasha. Ray's face lit up, a beacon of pure, uncomplicated joy. He ran to her, wrapping his arms around her legs. You came to my party. I knew you would. A smile tugged at Tasha's lips, but it was a ghost of one, overshadowed by the non-worrying. She knelt, smoothing his perfectly combed hair. Happy birthday, sweetheart. It's a wonderful party. How I scan a crowd, a desperate, sweeping gaze searching for a familiar face. Ray, have you seen a girl about your age, with long dark hair? Before he could answer, her cool, authoritative voice cut through the air. Ms. Gould. Tasha looked up to see Felix striding toward them, his tailored suit a dark slash against the glittering backdrop. His expression was a thundercloud of confusion and irritation. What are you doing here? She rose, her hands clenching at her sides. Panic made her voice sharp. I'm looking for my daughter. Yara, she's missing. She sent me this address. Felix's brow furrowed. Your daughter? Yes. She's 6, almost 7. She's small for her age, with big brown eyes and then a little star-shaped mole right here. Tasha pointed frantically to the spot just below her own collarbone. Have you seen her? The name, the age, the description, it all coalesced in Felix's mind with the force of a physical blow. The little girl in his study, the one who had stared at him with Tasha's eyes, the one who had told him, with heartbreaking certainty, that today was her birthday too. The blood drained from his face, the crystal glass of champagne in his hand trembling almost imperceptibly. He finally understood. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a cosmic collision. Lock it down, he commanded, his voice low and urgent to the head of his security team nearby. Seal every exit. No one in or out until I say so. Find her. The order rippled through the staff, a silent alarm cutting through the party's cheerful veneer. He turned back to Tasha, his gaze intense, a maelstrom of shock and dawning realization. She was here. She was in my study. Before Tasha could process his words, a shriek sliced through the ballroom. They found them near the French doors leading to the gardens. Nina, her face a mask of vicious fury, stood over Yara, who was now soaked in a splash of crimson fruit punch. The sticky liquid dripped from her hair and stained the simple dress Tasha had worked overtime to buy for her. Look at what you've done, you clumsy little brat. Nina's voice was shrill, attracting a circle of curious onlookers. She jabbed her finger at Yara. Do you have any idea who I am? Who do you belong to? Crawling in here off the street, looking for a handout. You're nothing but an illegitimate child, a little bastard probably raised by some gold-digging tramp. Yara's lower lip trembled, her eyes wide with fear and humiliation as she stared at the mess on her dress. Tasha started forward, a protective roar building in her throat. But Felix was faster. He moved with a chilling calm, parting the crowd like a ship through water. He stopped beside Nina, his presence so immense and cold that she flinched. He didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the small, trembling girl on the floor. Her name, Felix said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of absolute authority, is Yara Judges. A collective gasp swept through the onlookers. Nina froze, her face contorting in disbelief. Felix knelt, ignoring the stain on his expensive trousers, and gently took Yara's hand. He used his handkerchief to wipe a tear from her cheek, his touch impossibly tender. He looked up, his gaze sweeping over the silent, gawking guests. She is my daughter, my firstborn, and the rightful heir to this family. He stood, pulling Yara up to stand beside him, a silent declaration of ownership and protection. His eyes, now hard as diamonds, landed on Nina. Anyone who utters a single word against her, or her mother, will find themselves an enemy of the judge's family. And I assure you, that is a war you cannot win. Nina's face went from pale to ashen. Her parents, who had been preening nearby, looked as if they'd been struck. Daniel, Felix said to his head of security, escort Miss Vance and her family off the premises. They are no longer welcome here. Ever. There was no room for argument. The command was absolute. As Nina was led away, sputtering in humiliated rage, the crowd murmured in shock. Tasha rushed forward, gathering a still shaken Yara into her arms, burying her face in her daughter's damp hair. Tears she hadn't realized were forming finally spilled over, tears of relief and a profound, staggering gratitude. She looked up at Felix, who stood watching them, his expression unreadable. He led them to a quiet, private lounge, away from the prying eyes. After settling the twins on a plush sofa with glasses of milk and a plate of cookies, their earlier anxieties forgotten in the novelty of their reunion, Felix turned to Tasha. A ghost of a smile played on his lips. So, he said, his tone unexpectedly light, you found your daughter, I found mine, and I defended her honor rather heroically, I think. How do you plan to thank me? Tasha blinked, taken aback. I can pay you back for the dress, and for any trouble. He chuckled, a low, warm sound that vibrated through the room. I'm not talking about money. Tasha. He stepped closer, his presence filling the space between them. I have a proposition, a way for you to thank me properly. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What is it? Become the mother of my children. The words hung in the air, simple and yet earth-shattering. Tasha stared at him, speechless. He saw the confusion in her eyes and elaborated, his voice softening. It's the only thing that makes sense. Ray adores you. He has since the day he met you. And yeah, she came looking for me. But I think she was really looking for a family. For all of us to be together. He gestured to the children, who were now giggling together, sharing a cookie. Look at them, they're already a family. It's you and me who need to catch up. Before she could form a reply, the doors to the lounge burst open, and an old man with a booming voice and a silver-handled cane swept in. Felix, what is this nonsense I'm hearing? A secret great-granddaughter. It was Grandpa Judge's. His sharp eyes scanned the room, landing on Yara, and instantly softened. He shuffled over, his stern facade melting away. Well, I'll be. She has the judge's eyes. He beamed, looking from Yara to Ray and back again. A boy and a girl. A double blessing. Felix, you old dog. You've been holding out on me. He turned his attention to Tasha, his gaze shrewd but kind. And you must be the mother. Tasha, is it? You've given this family a great gift. He clapped his hands together decisively. Well, we can't have the children's mother unattached, can we? It's not proper, Felix. Call the family astrologer. We need to find an auspicious date for the wedding. The sooner the better. You finally got it right with this one. Boy. Felix ran a hand through his hair, a faint flush creeping up his neck. Grandfather. Perhaps we should discuss this. Tasha finally found her voice, her head spinning from the sheer velocity of events. Mr. Judges, this is all happening so fast. She looked at Felix, her expression a mix of awe and anxiety. It's not right for me to just suddenly appear as Ray's mother, your partner. People will talk. Felix stepped forward and took her hand, his touch warm and steadying. His eyes met hers, And in their depths, she saw not the ruthless CEO, but a man laying his entire world at her feet. "Let's make a deal, Tasha," he said, his voice a low, intimate murmur meant only for her. "We'll do it for them." He nodded toward the children. "And for my grandfather, who is clearly not going to let this go. We will present a united front. We will act as a family, and we'll see where it goes." He squeezed her hand, a silent promise passing between them. It was a business proposal on the surface, a practical solution to an impossible situation, but underneath, it was everything she had secretly, hopelessly wished for. A home, a family, a chance. He held her hand firmly, turning to face the doors that led back to the party, to the rest of their lives. Ray and Yara, sensing the shift, came to stand on either side of them, instinctively creating a perfect, four-person tableau. "Come on," Felix said, a genuine, confident smile finally reaching his eyes. "It's time my family was properly introduced."